Hey everybody, welcome back to In the Conversation podcast. Welcome back to another episode and tuning in to tonight, afternoon, morning, whenever you are listening in. Welcome back to In the Conversation. If this is your first time tuning into the podcast or your first time listening to this episode, well, obviously it's going to be your first time listening to the episode, but let me say this podcast in general. I just want to say thank you and welcome to In the Conversations, where we have conversations. So I encourage you, if this is your first time listening, that you go check out all the other episodes. But I'm thankful and I'm grateful for you tuning into today's episode. This is going to be a great episode. I know I have been making sure to be consistent with my podcast, and it's just kind of been the one thing in my life right now that I'm making sure that I'm sticking to. You know, we start things and then we stop and then we start up and then we stop, and we just have to make sure, especially going into the end of the year, that we just stay consistent. And some people's consistency can be different, right? So your consistency may be going to the gym 3 days a week, but it may not be 3 days in a row. It may be Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And guess what? That's still effective, right? You are still doing something and you're still getting active. So you're still accomplishing something within whatever that you are doing. And I also want to say there's a lot going on in the news. There's a lot going out in the world. And as I was telling my class, like I always do, I give them these pep talks. Just make sure you're taking care of you. Turn off the news. Take a break. Take a break and be kind, because so many things are changing in the world, right? And things are happening and people's lives are being affected. And it's very important that in these times, I want to encourage you, if you don't have a prayer life, if you're not someone that prays to God, I would encourage you to start praying over your mind, praying over your spirit, praying when you get in the car, praying in regards to travel. Pray about everything. Don't pick and choose the things that you're going to pray about because you just want to pray about certain things in hopes that it benefits you, right? No, when you are praying to God, you have to ask Him. And that's going to go into our episode, but you want to ask, you want to tell Him, you want to get direction. And it's very, very important that you do that. And that goes into our episode today, which is called When You Ask. When you ask. When you ask. So, questions arise. And the point of whenever you are asking a question is either, most of the time, we're looking for a solution, advice, direction, help. And when you ask something, no matter what it's in regards to, hopefully you're trying to get something in return, right? You're never just going to ask something and just ask it just to be asking, right? There's always should be some type of intention into why you are asking something. The flip side of this is when you don't ask, you don't know. When you don't ask, you don't know. And what I mean by that is there is a void and emptiness that you miss out because you did not ask, because you did not take the step, because you didn't reach out or whatnot. It can be a misfortune for you if you don't follow up, if you don't ask what needs to be asked as far as the question or something that you are needing. And this is going to go in, well, we're already in the episode. So this past October the month started off, I would say, okay. And things were just, personally wise, financially wise, and just overall, it was just a bit of a rough month for me, just being transparent. And I was kind of getting in a space where, hoping for some things to kind of come up, hoping for some things to kind of pop up, and they weren't. And if you're anyone like me, how do I say this? So I've always been a very, very independent woman, handling my business, doing what I need to do, taking care of things, working overtime, picking up side jobs, working my full time, working my business, doing whatever it is that I need to do. Even when I lived back home in Nebraska, even when I lived with my dad, and then even before I got married the first time, like I was just kind of like that always go getter. Like I was that girl that was going to go out and get the things done, do what I need to do to make sure that I have everything I need. What happens is when you are used to doing that, you can kind of make yourself an idol. You can make yourself just dependent on you, because it's like, who else is going to come get me? Then you also develop a mindset of, well, I'm an adult, so I need to handle my business, which there is truth to that. There is truth. And I'm not knocking that. I'm not knocking that at all. But whenever you become super dependent on something, you can lose that dependency, which means, I wouldn't say you can fail yourself, but putting too much hope in anything outside of God can fail. Let's just put it like that, right? So if you don't know me, I've always just been a very independent woman, going to handle my business and whatnot. And I've just kind of always had that mindset. I'm going to handle what it is I need to do, and I'll figure out a way. And prayerfully, as I have lived in Georgia, God has taken very, very good care of me. And it has just been a blessing. Now we have seasons in our life. And my mom, she told me this. She said, I was telling her something about my class, and I said that, my numbers were kind of low and whatnot. And she was saying God works in waves, and he works with us in seasons. And then another situation happened, and she said, you're not always going to be on top. And that has been sticking with me for about a week. You're not always going to be on top. And when you have a mindset of, I always got it, and I'm going to handle everything I need, and I'm just going to make sure it happens, and I'm going to make sure, again, you become dependent on yourself. And if you have that mindset, you can make yourself an idol. You can make yourself your own God, because you're just like, well, at the end of the day, so Amaya's going to handle it. Amaya's going to get it done. And then we forget who our provider, we forget who the source of our life is. And so the month of October was probably, I would say, overall for me, a very slow month. And I talked about the betters a little, I think 2 weeks ago. And that has been a deep revelation for me, where in the little, whether it's with friendships, whether it's with finances, whether it's with opportunities, where areas in life where we don't have as much can create a sense of either gratitude, it can make us sad, mad, angry, but there's something that's being learned or something being stirred within that. And so, anyways, so beginning of October, I was going to go get a oil change, and was saved last bit of money that I had. I was like, I'm going to get this oil change. And I went, and I was pulling out of my apartment complex, And soon as I pulled around, I whipped my car so hard, y'all, I popped my tire. And I knew that I did not have the money at the time to get a new tire. I just didn't. And I was like, okay, well, I know I was going to have it like the following week. So I went around and I was like, I'm going to have to stop because I knew my tire was going down. And so I parked and I became very, very overwhelmed in that moment. And everything within me was just very emotional because I was like, I don't want to ask. I don't want to ask for help. I don't want to ask. Because, like I said, we have our seasons sometimes where we have everything in this. Sometimes we have our seasons where we don't. And that's part of life. And in those moments, you can learn. In those moments, you can sometimes become better. But it's also sometimes, that those times where God starts to deal with an area in your life. And for me, it was pride. A pride of not asking for help. A pride of always being dependent on myself. So I was crying, blah, 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 and I called my dad. And he can already tell, like, if I'm like a little like off in regards. And I was like, hey, and long story short, I just kind of asked him if he could help me get a new tire. And, he helped me with that and in regards to that. So then a couple weeks later, some other things kind of were just happening. And it was in another position where I had to ask. Now, in those moments, one thing the Bible says in Proverbs 16, pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before stumbling. Haughty means arrogant, superiority, to think you're better, to think you're proud. When you have pride, or if you are dealing with the spirit of pride, what ends up happening, like I said beginning, you become dependent on yourself, and you also, there's no kind of how do I say this? Like humble or humility kind of is not there, right? Because in order to put your pride down, you kind of have to get in a low place to even ask for help or to even say, hey, I don't know what this means. Can you explain this? But when you have pride is like, well, I'm just too good. I need to figure it out. I need to lean on my way and let my way just be the way. And that can be dangerous. In those moments where even in whether it's in business or personal relationships and personal other things, when you don't ask, you can potentially miss out on a blessing. You could potentially miss out getting the help that you need. In James 4:2, it says, you lust and have not, you kill and desire to have and cannot obtain. You fight in war, yet you have not because you ask not. And the last part of that I want you to think about is sometimes people ask for things and you don't have the right intention, right? Some people that ask for money just want to take your money and go use it to go do things that aren't fruitful. Or they want to take up your time on the phone to gossip or to make noise and make drama, but there's nothing that's coming out of that conversation. And when we are asking things and we are seeking answers towards something, we have to check our heart posture as far as, why am I asking this? Why? The part that I want to focus on is a part where it says you have not because you ask not. Now, in the moment of my tire popping, I was going to have the money, but I was going to have to wait a little bit. Now, the pride in me would have waited a week, or I think it was like 4 or 5 days. I can't remember. I think I was going into the weekend. And like I said, I was already planning on getting a oil change. So popping my tire was just out of the budget. And when life happens and when things kind of just start going on again, this was at the beginning of October, and then things happened at the end of October where I had to ask for help. I had to ask for help. And in me asking, I got what I needed taken care of. If I didn't ask and I sat on my pride, it does you a disservice when you don't ask. It does you a disservice if you don't seek out the assistance that you need, because pride, when you have pride, you want to appear as you have it all together. You want to appear that you're always the one that's going to make it happen. You're always the one that's going to handle the business. And that's kind of where my mindset, and I knew, and the Lord's been working with me, because like I said, this is at the beginning of October, and it was like the entire month I was just working through things. And then at the very, very end, that's what's like, okay, yeah, definitely that is the spirit of pride. You have not because you ask not. You see, when you ask, you never know what you will receive. You may receive what you need, but also additional more, double into what you were asking for. So you may ask a business mentor, hey, like you may ask some financial advice with your business, right? You may just ask, let's just say at a networking event. You may ask them that one question, and then who knows, because you asked them something, or maybe you're vulnerable about something within your business, they say, hey, I want to work with you, or hey, I want to give you a free 30-minute, 60-minute consultation with my business, and let's create a financial plan. Let's create some type of goal for your business. See, when you don't ask, or you don't reach out for help, or you don't take the opportunity to get what you need, you miss out. Pride will have you standing in a place where you think you're better, you think you're too good, or even if you have it all, which is a blessing, right? You can get to a place where you don't even want to give. You don't want to help people. You don't want to give back, or you just feel like, well, I got all this money, I got all these possessions, I got this car, I'm well taken care of, and someone asks you for help and you just completely turn your cheek because you may have pride and just feel like, well, they should be handling their business. And so pride shows up and can show up in different ways. It can show up when you have a little bit, and it can show up when you have a lot. Because sometimes we see people that get a lot of money, and money can change a person. Money can, because it gives, this type of authority and this type of power that, people feel like, I'm in control. I got it. And that money, it can make you prideful when you have all that. And so you have to come to a place where you are keeping yourself low. In a low space of, if I have it all, I can still give it. I can still ask. If I don't have it, I can ask for help. And that's another problem that I have. There were times where I didn't have it. Like I didn't have the means, or I didn't have as much, and I still would give, or I still would give out because, I just, because it's just like, well, maybe I can, or I don't want to disappoint. And again, that's pride. My apostle said something. He said, it's okay to say no. It's okay to say I don't have it. It's okay to say I'm not going to make it this time. And sometimes we preach things and sometimes we say things, but then when we are in those situations, we don't own up. We don't execute those things. And I've always been one of those friends. I've always been one of those people that if somebody needed help, if somebody needed anything, if I didn't have it, or if I wasn't able to get it to them, I would try to find other ways to make sure they got what they needed. But then what happens when you come to a place like me where, hey, I just don't have it, or I'm going through a rough month and I have to ask? Or if I don't ask, then I'm essentially going to suffer. Because like I said, if you don't ask, you can kind of do yourself a disservice, or you could potentially miss out because you don't know. Like my dad said this week in the group chat, he said, this popular saying, closed mouths don't get fed. So if you don't open your mouth, if you don't ask, if you don't say anything, nobody's going to know. How's someone going to know to help you, or how's someone going to know to bless you? You never know what's on the other side of you asking. And the enemy will try to use fear. He'll also try to use shame and embarrassment to try to silence you, to try to put you in a box, to try to make you feel a certain way. And how the Holy Spirit saying to me, you're not failing, you're learning. In whatever place you are in life when you feel empty, because I was starting to feel like a failure. I'm like, oh my goodness, like I've never been in this situation before. I was feeling like I was a failure, but no, I was learning. And God works with us in different ways. And when I realized what was going on, I said, okay. And the thing about pride is you have to address it and you have to deal with it. It's not something that you should let it linger, let it go around. And so when I ask for help, when I say, hey, I don't have it right now, or hey, I need this until this date, or hey, this is what's going on. It's also about being transparent and being honest. Understand not everybody that's asking has a pure heart. Not everybody that's asking is asking for the right reason. Some people ask things just to benefit themselves. When I asked, I got the help that I needed, and I got the things I needed to be taken care of. I got them taken care of, plus more. And if you have the right people in your life and you have people that love you and care for you, they're going to make sure that you're good. They're going to make sure that you're taken care of. God's never going to put you in a situation to embarrass you, to make you feel like you can ever ask for help. What? And it's just like, I'm just one of those people that's just like, I'm going to help. If I got it, I'm going to give it to you. I will. But the part of you're not always going to be on top is a thing that I have to remind myself. Because if you come to like I said, I've always been the type of woman to handle my business, and I'm going to continue to do so. But this had to be dealt with, because I can't ever look at myself so highly and look at myself as so independent that God can't strip away things to make you say, remember, I'm God. I'm the provider. I'm the one that makes way. I'm the one that will send help. And part of faith is works. Part of it is doing the work. Part of it is asking. Asking is a type of work, right? So I can pray and say, oh God, I need X, Y, and Z, for my business or whatever, financially, emotionally, whatever it is, physically, right? And just sit there and stare at a wall. But what good is that? So asking is a type of work. It's considered works. You have not because you ask not. So what would happen if you asked, whether it's a question in your business, whether it's a question, even if it's financial, and you went to some type of person that's in the financial world and you say, hey, how can I be better with my finances? You went to a business mentor. Hey, what can I do to increase marketing, increase sales? Hey, how can I be a better parent? How can I be a better teacher? Hey, how can I be a better sister? How can I be a better cousin? How can I, right? So let's not just point it to financial things, but in all areas of our life, The Bible says, in all you're getting, get an understanding. There's always something to be learned. When you ask, you'll find the answers that you need. You may also find double. When you don't ask, you could potentially miss out on a blessing. You could miss out on getting what it is that you actually need. So humble yourselves. It's okay to ask. It's okay to not have all the answers. It's okay if you don't have it all together. It's okay. It's part of life. And as you progress and as you move up, God will work within you. And you will become not just someone that asks, but someone who will also serve. Being a servant. Sometimes we give, sometimes we are the ones asking, but then sometimes God puts us in a position where you're able to serve others, where you're able to help. And I think that is such a blessing, especially when people get in spaces and where they have a lot of money financially, but they're able to invest back into, colleges and back into their children, back into different businesses. That's also a blessing when you don't become someone that has so much that you feel like you can't give back. So it's very important that you ask, because you never know what you may find. You never know what you may obtain. You might find and get exactly what it is that you needed, if not more. So that is another episode, y'all. So I hope y'all learned something in the conversation with Amaya. Again, this episode was called When You Ask. Don't miss out because you don't ask. And don't let pride get in the way. Whatever it is that you need, ask. Okay? I will talk to you guys later whenever you listen to this. Have a very blessed day, evening, afternoon, morning, and be safe out there. Take care of yourself. And remember that Jesus loves you. I'll talk to you guys later.